A few years ago, at one of the family reunions, we presented a short video about things to do before plugging a motorhome into any source of electricity. I'd like to expand on that earlier presentation and go a little more in depth and show exactly how any coach owner can perform some simple tests. Obviously, all RVers desire a safe electrical environment for both coach and occupants, but it does require a proactive mindset on the part of all serious owners. Safety must not be taken for granted. It's never wise to assume the pedestal we're plugging into is wired correctly. Better to run a few easy tests and be 100% sure it's safe to use that electrical source, right? To do so, it will be necessary for all coach owners to carry a few relatively inexpensive testers with you as you travel. Let's take a look at 3 important test devices all RVers should have in their toolkit. First up is the DMM, or digital multimeter. Most all digital multimeters can measure voltage, resistance, continuity, and some amperage. All RVers should have a DMM along for the ride. For the first test, use the DMM to measure the voltage of the incoming electricity at any receptacle you wish to plug into. Be sure the meter is set to the proper alternating current scale. If you're plugging into a 30 amp receptacle and the ground pin is positioned on top like this, the hot wire is here at the 7 o'clock position, and the neutral conductor is at the 5 o'clock position. Measure the voltage between the neutral and hot wires. It should measure 120 volts plus or minus 5%. Next, measure from the ground pin to the hot wire. It too should indicate the same voltage reading. There should be no voltage indicated between the neutral and ground conductors. If you're plugging into a 50 amp receptacle, the 2 hot legs are these 2 slots, one at the 9 o'clock position and the other at the 3 o'clock position. This is the neutral wire, and of course, the rounded or D-shaped pin is the ground wire. Though nothing actually consumes 240 volts electricity in the coach, with a couple of exceptions, the 50 amp receptacle does produce 240 volts in 2 separate legs of 120 volts each. But each leg is on a different phase. I won't bore you with the details of the various phase configurations. Just know that the coach loads are split between the 2 legs of incoming voltage. Probing between the 2 hot legs with the DMM should reflect a reading of approximately 240 volts AC. And from the neutral slot to each leg of 120 volts, it should measure 120 volts on your DMM. The same between the ground pin and each hot leg. There should be no voltage measured between the neutral conductor and ground. However, with a digital meter, you may indicate a few stray voltages. But if you measure 0 volts between the 2 hot legs, that means each leg is wired to the same phase. Do not plug in. You must measure 240 volts across the 2 hot legs. For test number 2, we use what's called a non-contact voltage tester. I actually consider this test more important than measuring the voltage, since it not only verifies the polarity safely, but it can also be used to check for a hot skin condition. Here's a close look at the one I use, but there are many other brands available at any of the big box stores. However, I do recommend one with an on-off switch. That way you'll know the battery is still viable as it goes through its initial sequence. This flashing red lamp indicates it's ready to go. But be sure the tester you use has a sensitivity range of 90 volts and above. I have another tester that looks just like this one, but the voltage range is so sensitive it will indicate voltage by just being in the vicinity of the whole electrical box. When inserted into any hot slot on a receptacle, it will indicate the presence of voltage on that particular pin, either by an audible alarm or a solid red lamp. Remember, on a 30 amp receptacle, this is the hot wire, so the tester should only alarm on this one, neither of the other 2. The same on the 50 amp receptacle. Only the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock slots should indicate any presence of voltage. Reverse polarity is potentially dangerous and should be avoided at all costs. And this relatively inexpensive tester is the safest and easiest way to determine the presence of voltage on any conductor in any receptacle. As mentioned earlier, it's also good to test for a hot skin condition whenever you plug in. Just touch the tip of the tester to the frame or any metallic component on the rig. Because of the way motorhomes are wired, reverse polarity coupled with a faulty ground could cause stray voltage to energize the frame and other metallic components. If you ever feel a tingle or shock when you touch the metal components on your coach, immediately unplug the rig and notify the campground or property owner. You should never experience any kind of shock or tingle when touching the coach. So once you've verified the polarity of the incoming voltage, meaning hot is where hot should be, and the voltage falls within 120 volts plus or minus 5%, you know it's safe to plug the coach in. However, it's recommended to switch the main breakers off first, then plug the shore cord in, and finally turn the breakers back on. This avoids unnecessary arcing and possible plug damage. Once plugged in, for test number 3, use a common 3-light circuit analyzer like this one. I use this only to check the receptacles inside and on the exterior of the coach. They've been proven not to be reliable for checking for proper polarity at the voltage source. There are a couple electrical anomalies that can actually trick this tester and the digital meter, so only rely on the non-contact voltage tester to verify polarity. For detailed information about how some electrical devices can be tricked or fooled, check out the articles and videos at noshockzone.org. You just might be surprised. But feel free to use this tester to check the receptacles inside the coach, but only after you've measured the incoming voltage and verified the polarity. If there's a problem at one of the receptacles inside the coach, you'll know the cause exists within the confines of the coach electrical distribution system. So the 3 electrical testers I recommend every RVer carry are a digital multimeter, a non-contact voltage tester, and a 3-light circuit analyzer. Better to always be safe than sorry, right? Remember, never compromise or minimize motorhome safety at any time. On behalf of FMCA, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another edition of Motorhome House Calls.